This is Elias Dufexes. You're watching That Tom Clancy Show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another YouTube-specific episode of That Tom Clancy Show. I am, of course, your lovable robot host, Mr. That Tom Clancy. I don't know why I get a very specific article before that, but it just kind of started and stuck. So today is going to be another show with another entrant from hashtag Pitch Your Game. They do tend to be the bread and butter of my guests on this show, but that's because it's awesome. So today we have a virtual reality developer working on a lovely game called Squingle. So why don't we check out this quick video? Pretty cool looking, huh? All right, Bits and Pixels, please join me in welcoming today's guest from Squingle Studios, Mr. Ben.
Hi.
How's it going, Ben?
Yeah, it's going well. Been working hard on Squingle actually today. So, yeah, how are you?
So far so good. It's been a day. I woke up and I was able to move around, so we're gonna count that as a win.
That's yeah. I mean, whatever gives you the motivation to get out of bed is a good thing.
Yeah, that's what I like to tell myself in the morning. Uh, well, Ben, before we get started in earnest on the interview, there's a question I like to ask everybody before we start, and it's what games are you playing right now?
That's a great question. I've been playing way too much Cubism on the Oculus Quest 2, which arrived yesterday, and so it's been really nice to unpack and have a play with the new hardware. And Cubism, I read about a long time ago, and I thought, oh, I don't know if that game's going to be something I'm interested in. But it's so addictive. It's really hard, and it's really addictive. And the puzzle, it was only an expert puzzle today, but I swear
Only
it's impossible.
expert.
I swear it's I swear it's impossible. It was really hard. Tetrominoes level stage. It's really hard. I couldn't figure it out. But there's a guy called Anthony Steed who's a professor at UCL in London,
Mm-hmm.
and he completed the game. I think he was the first person to complete the game in the world, and he did it in like 2 evenings or something. So, but then he's a professor in VR at UCL, and he specializes in these sort of puzzles. So, not completely surprising. But yeah, that's the main game I've been playing a lot, and a few other VR games as well.
Remind me after the show to get this professor's name from you, because this sounds like the kind of person I'd love to have on the show in the future. Um,
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
You
because
should.
we were talking a little bit before the show, and this kind of course, is going to take our conversation completely off the rails to begin with, which is an excellent way to start the show. About just the complexity and the diversity of virtual experiences that are out there. We got pitched the Oculus Rift by Palmer Luckey in the early 2010s as this new generational leap in game technology. But since the Oculus and the Vive and all of the other headsets have come out, we're seeing a huge growth outside of the game portion too. I mean, with social VR, art, music, even now we're starting to see, performance, like actual plays
Mm,
being
yeah.
performed by virtual reality actors in front of virtual reality audiences, and just like, man, This
Yeah,
is
I
a
mean, I think that, yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I think the first time I came across VR was like as a kid watching certain TV programs like the Adventures of Superman and stuff, and there'd be like Lex Luthor would have created this virtual reality for Superman to be in it or whatever, and then we had films like The Matrix, which sort of popularized things, and all through the 90s, I think there was research going on, but then now we're in 2020, coming up to 2021, and obviously like things have exploded. Um, but yeah, I didn't even come across really like I came across it um, working in Japan in this sort of media lab. I was doing a postdoc there, and then I kind of liked a lot of the work they were doing because there's a guy called Tetsuya Mizuguchi, who maybe you've heard of, who's like um, he did the game Res, which is
mm-hmm.
also in VR, and like
God,
Tetris
I love
Effect
that
and
game.
Lumens, and some of those games. So he's also he's like leads heads up Enhanced Games that publish those games, but he's also a sort of professor at Keio Media Design at Keio University in Yokohama next to Tokyo. And so I was kind of attracted partly because of that, and they did a lot of stuff with really funky technology that I was sort of playing around with in my free time. But then it was just when the DK2 was coming out, and then like I had to go with that, and I was just like, oh yeah, I'm completely convinced about VR now because it was just incredible experience, and I'd never really even thought about it before then. And then I think from then on, I was like, okay, we need to work on this. Let's keep working. And now, things are it's a lot more popular. So,
Yeah. The DK2 was actually my first headset as well. I got it for myself in 2014 as like kind of like a birthday slash Christmas present to try and develop on
mm,
as well. And I mean, nothing ever really like super came of it, but it's just taking those first steps into what would become commercial VR was just amazing, you know.
yeah,
And
and I remember there wasn't really anything on it really. There was like that demo of like a plant pot on the, it's very difficult to get good content, obviously back then, and it was
well,
very limited. But just
there were a few people making like some really interesting stuff. Like I forget the name, but there was one particular creator who was making these Studio Ghibli inspired experiences. So like the one he made one for Howl's Moving Castle, and the one in particular that I experienced was he made the bus stop scene from My Neighbor Totoro. And so it was just that rainy bus stop in the woods, and you could walk up, and there was Totoro and all of its giant glory, and then Cat Bus rolled up, and Totoro gets on the bus, and he rides off, and like that was just one of the craziest and coolest experiments and experiences that I had seen up until that point. It was that moment that, at least for me, sold the idea of virtual reality being more than just a game technology.
mm, nice,
Yeah.
yeah.
But and then of course, like I mean, I grew up in the '90s too, and I remember those original like mall arcade installations with those giant clunky CRT based uh, headsets where you had like the like borderline Virtuix like treadmill thing you'd stand on, and just I'm so glad that they didn't start pushing VR as a consumer tech until we got OLEDs and LCDs.
Yeah, do you remember those weird things that you got into, and they were sort of like a car on sort of hydraulics, and then there was some sort of
Yes.
like roller coaster or something? And I remember being really fascinated by them. That was a sort of weird early form of VR in some sense, wasn't it?
And they're still all over the place too. And then something I noticed right before all of the lockdown and 2020 shenanigans started is
Mm,
seeing like virtual reality arcades too. So it's like Beat Saber is like one of those like touchstone experiences that you give to first time VR users. And
mm,
walking through like malls and stuff and seeing these little kiosks of like, hey, give us like $15 and play Beat Saber for 20 minutes. And I'm just like, that's an interesting way of getting people involved and intrigued in this. It's not quite an Oculus Quest, but it's a good start. But I mean, clearly the Oculus Quest is like the end game of getting consumer VR out to like not just the enthusiast market, but like for everybody. So,
I hope so. I hope so, because this this game we're working on, I'd like to say, I guess, the dream is that it can be sustainable to, like, it's really fun. This is the kind of thing that really gets me out of bed in the morning. And the market, it's promising that the market is keeps growing, because that means that it's more likely that we'll be able to continue doing what we enjoy doing. So I hope so. And now with the Oculus Quest 2, I really like. I mean, I was saying this about the Oculus Quest 1, that it's the first time where I think that a VR device is going to be like really viable and sort of get people's excitement. But the Oculus Quest 2, I think, just, I don't know, it refines it in such a way that now it's like, whereas I was enthusiastic about telling people to buy the Oculus Quest before, whereas now I think it's like, even people that aren't necessarily VR enthusiasts should be enthusiastic about recommending people to buy the Oculus Quest 2,
yeah.
because it's kind of become a no-brainer now. The
Well, I
pixels are so
mean,
small and
the
it's so
price point,
comfortable, and it's just really nice. The price point's really cheap. It's not that hard to get into now, and
yeah,
the
I
content is
mean,
getting better.
$300 is less expensive than a next generation console. Um, and two, like, I mean, the thing that really shocked me too with this generation of Quest hardware was that they're basically using this to replace their tethered experience as well. And I'm just like, that's a that's a bold move, Facebook. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
I think they're just. I think they don't want to divide their R&D and their market. I think that it makes sense to try and get everyone behind just one device and one area. And obviously, there's this, the market is kind of chosen. People like the fact that you only have to pay $300. You don't need a computer. You don't need a wire, and it's just feels right. So, I mean, I think that, in 3 to 5 years, we're going to be looking back, and all of these things will be 5G enabled and streaming from using all the technologies that are being built by Microsoft and Google and Stadia and and Amazon and their sort of streaming gaming platforms. All
yeah.
of these technologies are going to come together in the next mobile headsets, which will be sort of 5G enabled. And it just seems like an obvious trajectory.
Well, we're also seeing the people. I mean, the Oculus Quest has been out for what, like a day, and even before it had come out, all of
Yeah,
those
okay.
early reviewers and everything, the influencers and stuff that Oculus reached out to send advanced hardware
Yeah.
have already figured out how to cheat the system and stream over Wi-Fi from their PCs. And
Really?
yeah, I mean they figured that out. They figured out how to unlock the 90 hertz mode as because it's currently locked behind firmware or whatever. And it's just like, this is pretty neat. Like seeing all of that potential is already kind of there. I mean, minus the 5G connectivity, but next thing I'm hoping for is somebody figures out how to put a bigger hard drive in the thing, because 64 gigs for the $300 model is completely suitable for where VR experiences and stuff are now. But in the probably not too distant future, uh, that's going to be not as much space as people are going to want, and definitely not as much as they'll need. So,
This
but
is definitely becoming a big advert for the Oculus Quest.
the
I
funny
feel
thing
like
is too,
we're probably preaching to the converted. People who are listening to this podcast are going to be already sitting there with like 3 Oculus Quests already, wanting to wanting to know about.
strangely, my audience is primarily HTC Vive. at least
Oh,
in
really?
terms of
Okay.
VR enthusiasts. Otherwise, my audience is general, just kind of PC gamers or PC users. And I mean, like, definitely isn't a Quest advert because one, I don't own one. Two, I kind of firmly dislike Facebook. And three, I firmly dislike how Facebook is currently running the Quest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I know that the Quest isn't targeted at me. I am an enthusiast. I am the person who builds their own PC. I'm the person that wants that tethered, powerful experience, you know. Uh, but I fully realize that like the Quest is something that would be like excellent for my mother-in-law, who I think would get a huge kick out of things like, you know, not necessarily Beat Saber, but those more casual VR experiences. Um, you know, that's who that's for. You know, the Index, the Vive Cosmos, the HP Reverb, like those are the headsets that are targeted at me. So,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I'm staying in the Netherlands at the moment with my girlfriend and a couple of her friends. And you know, they don't play video games or anything, but they've been really excited. I've told them we've been playing VR games most nights, and they've been playing Beat Saber and Cubism, and just getting really into it. And so I think, you know, it has that massive, wide appeal outside of the general gaming market, to sell these game and other experiences to people that aren't traditional game market. So.
yeah. Well, the 21st century, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, the future's happening. You know, they always talked about the future ages ago, you know, like 10, 20 years ago, whatever. And now it's actually happening, isn't it? The future's actually sort of
Here.
arriving. And it feels like, I always like to imagine myself 100 years ago, and thinking about, like, dreaming about the future, and then suddenly zapping myself into the present and being like, I'm in the future, you know, and like
And
I've
the
got this
thing is
VR and computers and the internet, and
you don't
it's
even have
just,
to go back 100 years. I mean, you can literally go
wow,
back 30 years and tell
there was no
people,
internet.
yeah, there was extremely limited internet. Cell phones were in their very early consumer stage. And go back 30 years and tell them that not only has the internet become a huge thing, but it becomes orders of magnitude faster, and you can stream movies at a quality that was better than what you would get at theaters. That your cell phone now has more computing power than what NASA was using to send astronauts into orbit on the space shuttle, and that you'd be able to that televisions would be vastly larger at fractions of the weight, and just they would look at you like you were a crazy person. Because I mean, so much of what is here now is, I mean, futurists never would have thought that smartphones would ever be a thing, because you look at how people looked at future telephones, and they got smaller, they got, you know, weirder, and in fact they've gotten bigger, and they've gone down a completely different path, thanks iPhone. You know, and it's just, I mean, like, the internet's something I could have anticipated, but, you know, especially back then, how many people would have thought that digital goods would be more popular in a way than physical goods? You know, and it's just, it's so fun to watch how this all evolves, because it's also different than how everybody predicted and kind of wanted it to be.
Yeah, I've been like really addicted to TikTok for about a little bit. Well, I've stopped watching it now actually for a while because I've been working too hard. But yeah, TikTok's one of those things, and I'm just like, wow, the internet's just produced TikTok, and like streaming technologies and bandwidth and mobile phones. When you throw that all at society, they create something like TikTok, and I think it's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean,
I think TikTok's wonderful.
for all the terrible things out there, there's also a bunch of really interesting and cool things that people are making. I think one of the really interesting things that's also going on too is like you see those like choose your own adventure almost like comedy Twitter threads where I forget the guy. I don't remember the name of the guy who ran it, but like the one about the players would or not. Yeah, players would vote on what the actions of like this like crazy raccoon would do. And it was
Mm.
like, it's like, hey, you just crashed the garbage truck. What do you see like these three things. Then they would vote on like what the next action that this raccoon would take. Or Twitch plays Pokemon, and there's just all these just, the future is awesome. But we have gone super off topic because as much as this has been super fun, strangely enough, I actually invited you on to talk about a game you were making, which we kind of tangentially referred to earlier. But
Mm.
you're working on a game called Squingle, which you submitted for Pitch Your Game at the end of September. And I'm going to be completely honest. I'm at a loss for words for how to describe it. And I've gone as like deep into the woods on Squingle as one can possibly do on the searchable internet right now. But if you could, like, in your own words, explain to the people at home what Squingle is and what it's about.
Yeah, sure. I can try my best. I think that's definitely something I need to work on from a marketing perspective, to try and communicate the concept and the idea. Um,
Well, you can throw me in the credits as a
yeah,
consultant.
yeah.
Then,
I would say it's a sort of it's a psychedelic spiraling adventure is one tagline I'm working with at the moment. I don't know. It's a rhythm puzzle game, a rhythm maze puzzle game, um, and essentially it tries to um, answer the question, what do what do I want to do with VR? So, I mean, the thing is with VR is a lot of games out there. You've got things like shooting games. You've got a lot of video games concepts from consoles coming into VR, doing sort of like battle royale style shooting games, racing games, um, and I think the emphasis that I was coming from, I think when I was studying VR in a sort of more academic context, was sort of how can we make use of the sixth degree of freedom controllers and that stereoscopic 3D sense we have from looking at things within about the space of like a meter or two from us. These are the sort of particular new affordances of VR, which are likely to create new types of experience and gameplay, compared to what you can already do with things like computer screens and mobile phones and traditional media technologies. So Squingles really come out of that. So essentially, what you have to do is guide some rotating orbs through a sort of iridescent, um, trippy looking maze, and the rotating orbs are always moving, so you have to kind of time it right to get it through the squingle in the right way, otherwise you'll kind of hit the edges and then that's bad.
yeah.
um, there's lots of sort of obstacles that are moving in a sort of choreography of danger, and so you have to kind of time your movements as your orbs are sort of rotating around each other to kind of navigate your way through these dynamic levels of enemies.
So it's kind
And
of like a weird, not like weird is not meant in a negative context here, but it's sounding like this like visual ballet maze in a weird way.
the visual component is really important. So like for me, I love the fact that people are doing stuff, trying to recreate reality and make really realistic scenes in VR. For me, I'm really interested in like what's the trippiest thing we can possibly do in VR. Like, I love things like iridescence in beetles and butterflies, and so we really wanted to play with iridescence in the visual style and
Yeah.
these squingle shapes, and they're very close to you, and so you get this really strong iridescent effect. Um, like a butterfly or a beetle, which is really beautiful, I think. Um,
That's actually a conversation I was having with a friend of mine last night. I was playing through another VR game, Panoptic, that
mm,
just launched, and it's an asymmetrical multiplayer game. And my friend and I, at one point, we just basically stopped playing the game so we could appreciate the level we were in. And it's very clear that it's inspired by realism, but it's completely stylized. And I'm sitting there in VR, and he's the standard PC player, and I'm just sitting there and I'm appreciating these environments, and because I'm very much of your thinking on this, of why are we going to recreate something real in virtual reality when we already have reality available to us. And not just even in like the fact that I could take off a headset and I am in the real world, but in the idea too that so many video games too already cater to that style. And it's just when
yeah.
I want to go into a virtual experience, I want to be transported. I want to be somewhere that I could not possibly be. And helping a couple of rotate or orbs that are revolving around each other traverse a psychedelic ballet crazy maze is like exactly the kind of thing that VR was made for.
Yeah, I mean, I really love games like we mentioned already, Res and Tetris Effect. These games that are designed to be sort of play on that immersive ability of VR to control every aspect of your environment, your visual, audio, and haptic experience, right? So, and like in normal life, we have these ex- we have a lot of audio visual information and haptic information coming into our bodies, but in VR we can connect those things in completely new ways with the music, with the sort of game mechanic, with everything, so that the whole world can react to you in a sort of surprising, beautiful, wonderful way, um, beyond the limits of normal like physics. And I think that's something I think I want more experiences like that in VR. I want people to explore those sort of multi-sensory effects that you can get,
Yeah.
and that's a big sort of motivation for the in terms of the design principles of this game that we're working on.
Well, I mean, that basically answers one of my next questions, which was simply like, why this game? And I mean, you just kind of answered it there in the idea that this is the experience you want to give people. This is the experience you want to make, and awesome. Uh, because I mean, don't get me wrong. There is a place for games that try and maintain this very kind of realistic look. Uh, but we have this opportunity now to provide this window into the unreal that has never existed before. And we just need to just embrace that and really just kind of just go all in. you know uh
Yeah, I know, I completely agree. I guess video games have done this, a lot with like sort of Super Mario World is really colorful and there's mushrooms everywhere and dinosaurs and platforms and stuff. I really love that kind of style. And then, I think what Nintendo did with the DS, the 3DS was really interesting, where they sort of created this stereoscopic thing. And with VR, it's kind of like natively stereoscopic. And the question is like, what affordance does that give us? And the answer is that stereoscopic displays allow us to see that sense of depth in 3D, but at the same time, I find that a lot of VR experiences, like, and that's one reason I really love cubism, because cubism, all of the action, all of the cubes and everything is right close to you, and it really relies on that sense of 3D. You're manipulating 3D objects into a 3D shape and solving a 3D puzzle in front of you, and it's in that space right where that stereoscopic um, our sort of the human visual system's capability of um, understanding distance from it, the fact that we've got two eyes separated by a particular distance. Um, that's where we're most sensitive to sense that 3D and experience that 3D, and that game mechanic in cubism really exploits that to its fullest. I think that's a brilliant use of VR. I mean, I feel like all gaming in VR should. I mean, this is obviously not true. I mean, I love Beat Saber. I love you know Half Life and all these games. But there's so much richness to the mechanics of 3D in front of you in the sort of like desk type size space within arm's reach
Yeah.
of being able to manipulate 3D objects. There's so much possibility there, and so yeah, really, that was the number one sort of influence of trying to design the game mechanic for Squingle. Because I've worked on a few other types of things in the past. There's I'm going to end up plugging some old work, but it's not very good. But I created a few like juggling simulators because I love juggling in real life. I was always like part of juggling circus skills society at university and stuff like that. Like learning to juggle kind of goes with the territory of like Rubik's cubes, and I don't do
Well,
Rubik's cube, but
I don't
juggling,
know
that kind of
how
thing.
into Edgar Wright you are, but might I recommend that you don't go to Sanford? Uh,
All right.
it's crusty jugglers. Sorry,
But, yeah, but
I love that movie so much. And when you said jugglers and you're English, and I'm just like, I have to make this joke.
that's fine. That's all right. I get it all the time. Yeah, but with juggling, it's almost like a really nice thing for VR because it's in that space right in front of you. You've got these three balls or whatever, and you're throwing them up and down. And so I tried to sort of engage with that, and there's a couple of different VR juggling experiences you can find through my website or something like that, and you can just download it and have a go.
Linked
And
below.
I think there's one on SideQuest as well called like Planet Juggle or something. It's a really crappy like early prototype, but I decided not to take it any further into a proper game mechanic just because juggling is really difficult to learn, and the learning curve on it is really hard, even in VR. And even though I was trying to, you know, build all sorts of mechanisms in to make it easier to ease that learning curve, like you can juggle on the moon kind of thing, like reducing gravity or like guiding the balls to some extent, so it's you kind of sharing control with the system. It was just too difficult, but nonetheless I wanted to like play with doing something involving that spatial awareness and the rhythm that is also innate in juggling. You have to juggle at the right rhythm, otherwise you catch two balls at once or you drop them. So Squingle is an attempt to simplify sort of juggling mechanics into something that's really accessible and also very compelling, very fun. So it takes this sort of rhythm element, brings that into sort of music and audiovisual feedback and puzzles, um, and creates a game out of that. So
Uh,
I hope people can understand the concept
quick
at the very least. Yeah.
quick tangent here.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
are your juggling games Steam VR enabled?
Um. Uh. Good question. No, I think maybe one of them. One of them is maybe. I can't remember. There's one called
Rats.
Neutrino. There's one called Neutrino, which might be, and the other one is called Planet Juggle, and that's I think I did it with the Oculus SDK, so it's on the side quest, and also you can download it for like you know uh, Rift as well.
Because I was gonna track that game down. And I was gonna play it. Uh, because I
I mean,
learned
don't
how.
get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes
Oh
up.
no, my hopes are like below my desk here. You know, no offense, you told me not to get them up. But I just wanted to check it out because I learned how to juggle like 20 years ago, and I never got good at it, and I like immediately stopped doing it. But every now and then I just like to I can juggle for like a couple seconds, and it's just fun to like be like, haha, I can actually do this, and then it all falls apart. But for a couple seconds I look cool at a party, and that's it. So
And it's a bit of a, it's one of those party tricks that you do, and if you do it for more than like 10 seconds, it gets awkward. And
yeah,
everyone's like, can
because
you stop doing that now?
because it's
Yeah,
like when you get in that rhythm, it's like you don't want to leave it because like
yeah, it's
you
very
know it's
addictive.
just it's hard to get. It's like like punching a speed bag at like a boxing gym. It's like you get that rhythm and you just go until like your arms don't want to work anymore.
Mm.
But the problem is that it is juggling, and if you do it for long enough, people start asking you to do it with chainsaws. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, you get this sort of, how many can you juggle? Can you eat an apple at the same time? All
yeah,
reasonable questions,
yeah,
but all ones that you've heard before.
exactly. It's like the only thing you can do at a party. It's like juggling in magic. It's like you do it at a party, and you're basically just opening yourself up to putting a show on for people.
I don't think it's ever gotten me a girlfriend or anything.
I mean,
So,
I can absolutely tell you it did not get me a girlfriend. Uh,
yeah,
um,
I don't know. Yeah.
well, really, kind of the last question that I have for you is: are you working on this as a solo dev, or do you have like some other people to kind of like help you out along the way?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. Like in the past, I've always worked sort of either on my own or kind of on my own, but working with someone on like integrating like this haptics or something like that. Um, I'm just going to plug one more project, past project, which is a game called, it was a music video type VR experience, also extremely trippy, called Crystal Vibes, featuring a musician's music called Art. It was really cool, and we did it with a sort of full body haptic vibration suit, and uh, pr- we were lucky enough to exhibit it at the New Frontiers in at Sundance, and for that I was doing the sort of psychedelic music visualizer component in the VR on my own, but then working with this big team who were doing this full body haptic vibration suit, which we were kind of showcasing at the festival. And then, uh, I came back to England from Japan about 3 years ago. And then I was just sort of working on like the juggling things, experimenting things on my own, but nothing really I thought would be something that I think was, we'd had enough good feedback for to bring the idea to market. Um, and in this time round, I've been, I started off very much on my own, um, developed the core mechanics, um, like using some really cool tools. I was really interested in sort of like sign distance functions. If anyone out there knows what those are, they're these like new ways to do graphics on screen that are gaining popularity.
I'm
And
just gonna
they're really
nod
cool
like I
because
know
you
what you're
can do
talking about.
like they're really good ways to make really organic shapes, and all the levels and squiggles are made of like SDFs. So for the techie people there, they might be interested in that. Um, but yeah, anyway, so develop the core functionality, but then kind of realize, right, like if I want to accelerate this and actually get it onto some platforms, or I need to try and do a professional job of it. So I sort of started this game studio, and I've now hired sort of like digital marketing person. We've got two developers, a UI developer and a UI designer, and I've got a sound engineer and a sound integrations engineer and sound designer,
Hmm.
um, and also like an illustrator to do sort of marketing assets, and also now like a 3D modeler. So this is the biggest team as well. It sounds big. It's like maybe 7 people or something. But for me, it's pretty big deal. I don't know. It's like a big team. I've never worked with like
I mean,
done
7
something
is
like
not
this.
a small number. I mean, we can't
Well, I
even
mean,
count it on
it's
one
kind of
hand.
it's bigger than a solo. It's a bigger than a solo dev project at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah, but and it's quite exciting for me because I've never really like I don't know. I've encountered teams and working with people like this in the past a little bit, but not putting some money behind something and putting some effort behind something in a way. Um, it's exciting, but it's also it's a lot. It's kind of more work than I anticipated managing the team, and but it's a great team, and I think we've built kind of a nice community feel to it. Um, we've got like some sort of game jam type people who go to a lot of hackathons and stuff, and then we've also got people that work more in sort of like other kinds of industry, charity sector, and um, like theatre and more like arts and music. So bringing different people from different communities um, that have from creative industries and things, and bringing them together into behind one project and get everyone really excited, and getting the Discord server running and starting to build a bit of a community on the Discord server as well. It's really exciting to see how things like grow and progress, and I think the feedback and we're getting is really good so far. So um, yeah, it's kind of it's a big deal for me. I mean, I like getting people together and getting them excited is makes me really happy.
Nice.
Yeah. I
Well,
encourage everyone to join our Discord server and
you know,
come and join a community and have a chat.
boop, link down
And
below as well.
we're at the stage at the moment where we've got lots of things in place, but there's a lot of design elements still to be made, and the level design is very much still up in the air, and a lot of the feedback that we can get right now will make a big difference to the direction and design and of the game. So if people want to have influence and even sign up to be like beta testers and things, we're really uh, welcoming uh, that kind of input from people at the moment.
Cool. Well, studio audience, especially the VR having studio audience, you know what to do. Uh, well, Ben, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. It's not as frequent as I would like to get a chance to sit down and talk with a fellow virtual reality enthusiast about more than just the game they're making and like get into like the why of virtual reality. Uh, but before I let you go, there's one last thing we have to do, and it's a little bit that I like to call the 5 questions. Now, Ben, if you are unaware, and for any first timers out there in the audience, the 5 questions are, well, 5 questions that I prepared before the show that have nothing to do with anything that we have talked about so far.
Yeah, right.
Are you
Okay.
ready?
As ready as I'll ever be, I guess.
Awesome. Question
Right.
number 1. What is your dream travel destination?
Um, I really want to go to Thailand at the moment.
All right. Cool. I haven't been to Thailand, but I was
Not
next.
particularly exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
Yeah.
exciting. I mean, I was next door in Cambodia 7 years ago now. So, I mean, like, yeah, it's totally exciting. Um,
Uh,
question number 2.
I mean,
Oh, sorry.
just like anywhere's a dream right now because I
Because
don't
we
know.
can't
I
go
want to
anywhere.
go. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the Netherlands right now. I should be in England probably, and I'd like to go to Southeast Asia where it's still warm.
Yeah, I mean, like,
So
I'd like to be able to go to a neighboring state without having to do a 2-week quarantine before and or after. Uh, but is what it is. All right. Question number 2. What is
nice.
the best ice cream flavor?
Strawberry cheesecake.
There's something wrong with you. Uh, question number 3. What is your favorite video game genre?
Um, anything that's well, music rhythm games. Yeah, I'm gonna
Word.
say that.
How do you feel about
Anything that's
Pistol Whip?
trippy.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. It hasn't grabbed me in the same way that Dance Dance Revolution did, but then maybe that's because I'm not 14 anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it grabbed the crap out of me, but I wish it had I wish it had more songs, but I understand why it doesn't. But also too, I really they have a couple of my favorite electronic groups on there. Like, I mean, Black Tiger Sex Machine is there, and it's just like I dig their music a lot. So um,
Yeah,
I'm not
no,
14
I think
anymore
music's.
either, but uh, music like that keeps me young. So, um, question number 4: who do you watch on YouTube?
Mm, um, 2 Minute Papers, and who's that? There's a VR person who's quite famous. I've forgotten his name. My memory's really bad,
That's fine.
and yeah, I'm not actually that big on the internet, to be honest. It's a bit of a struggle for me to like do things like Twitter and YouTube. I just sit there like in the corner doing my own thing and checking the BBC News website sometimes,
You
and
know,
recently TikTok.
hey, you use the internet for what you want to use it for, and so long as it's not illegal, I'm not going to judge you. Now, if it's illegal, I will judge the hell out of you. Um, all right. And then finally, question number 5: what is your favorite kaiju?
um, is it a trick question?
No, it's not.
What's kaiju?
You know, the giant Japanese movie monsters. You know, like Godzilla, Ghidorah, Gamera, stuff like
Oh,
that.
oh right. Uh, um, I I don't know how to answer that question. Godzilla, I guess.
All right,
I
that
don't really
is
know any others.
a perfectly acceptable answer. I'm not going to then get into the
What's your favorite?
Well, you know, that is actually, it's a very hard question. I am a big fan. Like, I mean, Godzilla is of course like the OG. But like visually, Gigan is my favorite because I just love the like hook hands and like the circular saw in the
Mm,
stomach. Like, I mean, it's just it's insane and it's stupid. And it's only the kind of thing that could have come about from, you know, like Godzilla movies. But then again,
have you
too,
ever thought about designing one yourself?
hell no.
No.
Um, because all of mine would end up just looking like dinosaurs.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, my favorite character is Yoshi from Nintendo. You know, the green.
Oh yeah.
Is it a dinosaur? Is it a dragon? Don't know.
It's a
It's one question I've
dinosaur.
been asking my.
I know it hasn't worked out in streaming my set over to you, but I don't know if you noticed while you had the opportunity, but I do have a very stylized Super Mario World overworld as my backdrop
Mm,
here in the studio, created by a lovely virtual reality artist, VR underscore human on Twitter. And he makes some absolutely spectacular work. And I'm still trying to get him on the show, but he has been like stupid busy. So, but I do have this by his permission, just in case anybody was doubting. So, yeah. Um, well, Ben, thank you so much for
very
being
cool.
on the
I'll
show.
look forward to checking out.
You have survived the 5 questions. And through the whole show, I've had a little ticker in front of you that has been displaying the Squingle Studios Twitter account. Is there anywhere else aside from the Discord, which you mentioned earlier, that people should go to get updates on Squingle?
Uh, well, we're on pretty much everything. We've got Twitter, Instagram, even on LinkedIn, Discord, and we've got a website. things across multiple channels all at once. So probably one's enough. But if you're really keen and you want to support the project, then you can like join all of them. Yeah.
I'm not putting the LinkedIn on there. I'm just saying that right now.
No, okay, that's
Well,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ben,
But
thank you.
we just did that yesterday.
Oh, wow. It's like brand new.
Brand
Well,
new.
look,
It's brand new.
yeah. If any of you out there in
You're
the
coming in at the
audience
beginning.
are keen to do it, like be one of the first connections to Squingle on LinkedIn. But I'm not putting that link in the description. Well, Ben, it has been lovely having you here. I'll hang out for just a moment. I'm just going to switch over to this camera real quick, and I'm going to say thank you all so much for being here. It means the world to me to have your support, and you guys love to watch our shows. Now, if you're still here, which hopefully you are, and you have any desire to check out any of the links or any of the projects or anything we've talked about in the show, you will find all of those down in the description box below. And hey, while you're on your way down there, why don't you stop by, hit that subscribe button, maybe give us a thumbs up. And if you're feeling, kind of generous and cool, give that bell a nice little ring. And if you want to see any other episodes of That Tom Clancy Show, go ahead and check the playlist I'm linking up there in the top corner. So once again, thank you all for joining us. I have been That Tom Clancy, and I will see you all next time on a brand new episode of That Tom Clancy Show.